Thank you, Chair. Following Asian tradition, I have to start my presentation with apologies. But if I would like to follow international tradition, it's better for me to start my presentation with some jokes. So I will try both. My presentation is now being circulated. My apologies for my discussants. But unlike Sadao, I didn't have to make update because we didn't make even the text per se. That's the merit of being the organizer of a conference. And this presentation was prepared by myself and my colleague, Dr. Chol Baek, who is sitting over there. Our division of labor was like this. I was expected to run regressions, and Dr. Baek will write the text, but he could not write the text because I was keeping on running regressions as always. It's like having potato chips. Once you start, it's very difficult for you to stop, and it's not always good for your health. Here, I'll start with our agenda. First, I will start with some background and motivation, and part two will be trying to estimate impacts of some IP policies on patenting. And one big difference between this paper and the Sadao's team's paper is that they were interested in patent quality, but we are just focusing on patent quantity. And then with some information about intellectual property and infrastructure investment trends in Korea, because now I'm working at PMAC, Public and Private Infrastructure Investment Management Center at KDI. At chapter 4, we will show you some regression results on the links between infrastructure investment and innovation activities and productivity growth. Oh, by the way, both Dr. Baek and I are working on manufacturing productivity. We are not experts in IP, so please lower your anticipation level. And then we'll cover some related issues for researchers and policymakers. First, background and motivation. Again, this is also for the triadic patent statistics compiled by OECD. And here you can see the trends in triadic patent families. And of course, the first runner is the US, and then Japan. And then the third runner with a smaller scale is Germany. And as Director General Lee mentioned this morning, very surprisingly, the number 4 country is South Korea, is here. And the number of triadic patent application was very low in Korea for a while, and then it started to catch up very quickly. And then we came ahead of, say, which country? UK in 2003, and 2005 we made catch up in front of France. Okay. And with the same scale, we can see the followers coming, and we need to pay some attention to them, like Israel, and then China, look at this. And then India and Singapore. And Korea is there. Taiwan? Was it Taiwan? I don't know. I didn't see them in the OECD publication. Taiwan must be somewhere, but I don't know.
The OECD calls them Taipei.
Right. Chinese Taipei, yes.
Chinese Taipei.
Yes. And the surge in patenting might be related with structural changes in Korean economy. Here you can see the trend in value-added share of manufacturing industry. For G7 countries, it's declining persistently. But Korea, the value-added share is not declining, but the share of low-tech sector is declining. Oops. And here, this is employment share. Employment share, even in Korea, it started to decline, like G7 countries. And you can see the rapid decline in the employment in low-tech manufacturing sector, like textile industries and shoe industry, for example. And if you compare this decline in employment share among OECD countries, the structural change in Korea is really outstanding. Like all the other OECD countries, they showed some persistent decline in low-tech manufacturing employment, but Korea, the change is very rapid. And you can see that the same pattern with my data. I will use annual survey on mining and manufacturing. And here in value added, in real terms, the portion of high-tech sector, like electronics, semiconductors, they are increasing very rapidly. So this big change in industrial structure is related with a surge in patenting, because in high-tech industry, importance of patenting would be there, and also electronics would be a major sector behind the surge in patenting in Korea. And also, all those factories closed down in low-tech, they moved to China, basically. And here you can see that the trend in import share of final and intermediate goods by region, this was collected by my ex-colleague, Payne, in 2006. And Japan, for both final goods and intermediate goods, the portion importation coming from non-OECD country has become larger than that from OECD country. Behind it, China is the main driver, and Korea is following the similar pattern. So, I'm not good at using this. So we saw a recent surge in patenting activities in Korea. And globalization and structural changes in Korean manufacturing is a reason behind it. And we saw rapid industrialization and economic development in Korea. During the lunchtime, I talked with Walter, and he said that when he was leaving Korea and when he visited Korea several times, Korea became a totally different country. So over the first 3 decades, Korea really experienced development, economic development. And nowadays, my colleagues and even myself using Korean data, we have big difficulties in submitting our papers to, say, Journal of Development Economics. The editor rejected, if now reading the abstract, knowing that the data was from Korea, saying that Korea is no more developing country. So it might be, Korea might be a good case to learn about the links between IP policy and economic development, because we saw some big changes in relatively short period of time. It gives us good case for kind of natural experiment. And KIPO, Korea Institute for Korea Intellectual Property Office, they started new policy measures since 2005, and they asked us to do some research, and also they provided with good data. So our first job was to evaluate the new policy measures for public R&D and patenting, and our major regression results came from the study. And so we have access to various microdata. Second part, measuring impacts of IP policy on patenting. Since 2005, KIPO started 2 kind of new projects. First, they started to do patent trend survey. It was done at the stage of planning multi-year public R&D projects. And the project size, the project cost was about 10 to 80 million Korean won, is about 10 to 80,000 US dollars, and it lasted for 3 to 6 months. And at the same time, they started prior art search survey for government projects at the stage of selecting short-term, small-scale R&D projects. And it costed 1 to 2 million Korean won. So it's like 1 to 2,000 US dollars, very cheap, and for 3 to 7 days. And they want you to see, only after 2 years, they want you to see whether these two policy measures made any impact. So it was very difficult to prove that. So what we did was like this. This was regression using the data covering 2000 to 2006. The dependent variable was number of patent applications at the IP's International Patent Classification Code for subclass level. And then we had government budget spent for two projects at that year and the next year, but we have only 2 years window. So we did some simple-minded pooling regression for the sum of those two projects' budget and also for each project. And then the pooled regression showed some positive coefficients with declining trend, but still it was not too convincing to us. So instead, we asked for more data. They were doing some projects, but they had budget for patent map projects. They provided producing patent maps for each specific sectors, and it had longer duration, so we could do the similar regression, and the pattern was similar. Again, it was kind of cross-sectional because it's based on pooling. So we used year dummy and we used class dummy, and the number of observations was about 4,000, and each year it covered about 500 subclass sectors. So it was the time when we talked with Director Rai and Professor Lee, and they asked us to submit this to the monograph, but we were not comfortable with this regression result. And we waited for 3 more years to collect more data. And in the meantime, we also produced 2 more monographs. So in that sense, we were quite productive. So I will show you the newer results. So it covers from year 2000 to 2008. So we have 4 years window for some selective provision of the budget. And now independent variable is the number of patent applications for year T, and then explanatory variables previous 3 years expenditures. This is with pooling, the pattern is very similar. And then now we can even try panel regression. So fixed effect, the coefficient size is much smaller now. Of course, we are not making the coefficient based on cross-sectional variation, but variation over time. But still, we see this similar pattern. So and also, we did the same regression for random effect, and the coefficients was quite similar, and the same pattern persists. So if we would be asked once again, my colleague Dr. Beck might be able to write text for this regression results. How many minutes do I have? 10 minutes left? 5 minutes?
Let me see. No, I think you actually, technically, you have 15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay.
But 10 is good.
Okay, I'll try. I will give you some information on intellectual property and infrastructure in Korea. For example, this is from another OECD work, Geography of Inventive Activities in OECD Countries. You have top performance 30 regions. The number 1 is Kanto area in Japan, number 2 California, USA, number 3 Kinki area in Japan, number 4 Massachusetts, USA, number 5 New York, number 6 Texas, number 7 is Korea, the metropolitan Seoul. So Korea seems to be an important area now. So from now on, we will my data will be based on regional variation instead of sectoral variation. We have some nice maps for North Korea, North America, Europe, and Japan and Korea and Australia, made by OECD. And I made a similar map for Korea. So this is for 1990, and this blue areas will increase over time like this, in 10 years and 2005. So I have some information for regional variation and it change over time. It will be a good explanatory variable. And also I have data for road stock because I'm working for Public and Private Infrastructure Investment Management Center in Korea. I have road stock data for different regions, and it's also increasing very rapidly, still even after year 2000. And this is the physical data, 2-lane equivalent of the length of the road. And if it's highway, we have some extra weights for that. And you can see that you can see some regional variation, and it's increasing rapidly still. So using this, I want to run some regressions. I have good microdata, mining and manufacturing surveys, like census of manufacturers in the US and like Kogyo Tokyo in Japan. And it covers all plants with 5 or more employees in mining and manufacturing sectors. And the survey contains plant-level information on output, inputs, and a variety of additional items, including the plant ID. With it, I can make panel, and regional code and industry code. So I can add some regional variables and industry-level variables. Merge it into this data set. And for form dynamics, I can follow each entry cohort, and I can draw this figure like survival rates, hazard rates over time. And I also can draw entry rate, exit rate over time. And we can calculate plant level total factor productivity. And for each sectors, you can do total factor productivity growth decomposition, like Harty-Wenger type decomposition. So these are some examples, but I will be brief here. You can see that the high-tech sector is expanding and low-tech sector is declining. And before the financial crisis, the TFP growth rate at manufacturing is about slightly higher than 2%. During the crisis period, it declined below 2%. And also, relative size of contribution of net entry effect became dominant during this period. And then after the crisis, the TFP growth rate surged again, about 5%. And the pattern, the dominating portion came from stayers' contribution. So I have these data at plant level, and now I can use this plant level TFP growth rate for some regression. Independent variable is plant level TFP growth rate, 3-year average from now to 3 years later. And explanatory variable is plant characteristics and also industry characteristics, and I can also add regional characteristics when data are available. And here I will show you the main result is this. So when entry rate is higher for a sector, the plants belonging to that sector tends to have faster productivity growth on average. At the same time, if I add exit rate, again, exit rate also contributes to faster productivity growth, partly from competition effect, also from kind of sample selection effect. All the less productivity plants disappear over time. Now, more regression results on R&D and road stock. First, R&D intensity by plant, surprisingly, it does not contribute much to plant level productivity growth mainly because R&D activity itself has a lot of uncertainties and lags. While R&D intensity by industry, if you belong to an industry with a lot of R&D activities, your plant tend to show much faster productivity growth. It's shown there. And I added road stock and also entry and exit, and the signs are all significant. And road stock data also showed that if your plant belongs to a region with larger road stock, your productivity growth rate seems to be faster. Now, more regressions on R&D and road stock. First, industry level R&D intensity seems to contribute more for, here we have 4 groups. plant with less than 50 employees to plant with more than 300. And then the contribution of industry R&D is more, the coefficient is a lot bigger for bigger plants. And on the next slide, you will see that the contribution coming from firm dynamics, it's a lot bigger for smaller plants, while contribution of road stock seems to be quite stable, regardless of the size group. R&D and patenting. Now I added industry level R&D, and I used some, first, the number of patent applications by industry was contributing to productivity growth. And at the same time, some interaction terms, industry R&D and industry patenting, positive. Plant R&D and industry patenting, again positive. Plant R&D and industry R&D are positive complementarities, interaction terms. But those two terms were not significant. So next step, I focused only on high-tech and medium high-tech industries, believing that patenting is more important in that sectors. Then you see that all those interaction terms are both positive and significant. Finally, now you cannot read Korean, but you have seen many tables, so you can try. Here, interaction terms for regional road stock and regional patenting, and they showed positive coefficients, meaning that infrastructure and innovative activities seems to have some complementarities. Finally, I want to mention some related issues for researchers and policymakers. First, this is Korean public investment management system. Some new approaches like PFS, preliminary feasibility study, was introduced in 1999 after financial crisis in 1997 and 1998. And this PFS is done by us, TMEC and KDI. In Korea, since then, we have 3 stages for implementing public investment management, ex-ante, intermediate, ex-post. We do ex-post evaluation, and also at intermediate level, we do total project cost management and reassessment study of feasibility. But even before starting the project, we do PFS, preliminary feasibility studies. All these stage with red characters are owned by Ministry of Science and Strategy and Finance, and we are doing the research. And the main thing at PFS is basically doing cost-benefit analysis. It is a short and brief evaluation of project to produce information for budgetary decision. And it's owned by MOSF and managed by us. And since the enactment of National Finance Act 2006, we have legal basis for doing this. And one important thing is that before the enactment of the act, we focused on infrastructure projects, but now this PFS has expanded its coverage from infrastructure project to non-infrastructure programs like R&D programs and welfare programs. My co-author, Dr. Beck, is working for KeyStep. KeyStep has been doing this cost-benefit analysis for R&D proposals for several years, and now that task came to us. So we should do cost-benefit analysis, not only for infrastructure investment, but also for R&D projects. And this is flowchart of PFS. We do economic analysis based on demand analysis, cost estimation, and calculating cost-benefit analysis. And we have other pillars like policy analysis and balanced regional development analysis too. We have been doing a good job in infrastructure feasibility studies, but for R&D it's very difficult because for road you can see what would be the output, but R&D it's very difficult. But anyway, we have to do this preliminary feasibility studies. This is quite challenging, and that's why I'm related with my job. I'm very much interested to learn more about the links, the empirical studies from the experts in research on IP and technological innovation. These are some, here we have covered about more than 300 projects for PFS. for road, railways, seaports, culture and tourism, water resources and others. In others, the increase of others in year 2008 is R&D projects. So, these days in public investment management or in fiscal management, so-called performance-based budgeting is being emphasized. And more broadly, evidence-based policymaking is very important these days. So in these new areas of measuring the contribution of innovation or investment in intangible assets seems to be very, very important. And I think we should learn a lot more from researchers to do some systematized evaluation for both ex ante and ex post in this area. So I'll stop here. Thank you.